The Cleveland Browns just dropped the biggest hint about their quarterback decision at the NFL Combine. And according to sources who caught what Andrew Berry said during a casual hallway conversation that he didn't realize was being overheard, the Browns are planning something that nobody in the media has speculated about, and that could completely shock the NFL world on draft day. Berry was talking to another GM about quarterback evaluations when he allegedly said, "Everyone thinks we're choosing between two guys. But what if the answer isn't in this draft at all? What if the best move is to make a trade for an established veteran and use our draft capital to build around him instead of gambling on a rookie?" And then, according to sources, when the other GM asked who Berry was referring to, Berry allegedly smiled and said one word, "Kirk," as in Kirk Cousins. According to sources who've been investigating this hint, the Browns have been having secret back-channel conversations with the Atlanta Falcons about a blockbuster trade that would send the Browns' third overall pick to Atlanta in exchange for Kirk Cousins and additional draft compensation, giving Cleveland an immediate veteran starter while allowing Atlanta to move up for their franchise quarterback. And if this is real, it would be the most stunning pivot in recent draft history, with Cleveland abandoning both Shedeur Sanders and Fernando Mendoza to go with a 35-year-old veteran who could give them 3 years of stability while they build the roster properly. The hint that's driving this speculation about Cleveland's huge quarterback decision happened on Friday morning, February 28th, 2026, in one of the hallways of the Indiana Convention Center where the NFL Combine is taking place. According to sources who were present in the hallway at the time, Andrew Berry was walking with Browns scouts between Combine workout sessions when he encountered the general manager of another AFC team. And the two men stopped to have what they apparently thought was a private conversation about quarterback prospects in this draft class, according to sources who were close enough to overhear portions of the conversation. The other GM asked Berry something to the effect of, "So are you guys locked into Shedeur, or are you actually considering Mendoza after everything that's happened?" And according to sources, Berry's response was cryptic but revealing in ways that the other GM apparently found surprising. According to sources, Berry said, "We're evaluating everything, but I'll tell you something off the record. Everyone thinks we're choosing between two guys in this draft. But what if the answer isn't in this draft at all? What if the best move for us is to make a trade for an established veteran and use our draft capital to build around him instead of gambling on a rookie who might or might not work out?" That response, according to sources, prompted the other GM to ask which veteran Berry was referring to. And that's when, according to sources, Berry smiled and said, "Kirk," before changing the subject and moving on. According to sources who witnessed this exchange, the other GM's expression after Berry said Kirk was one of genuine surprise, like he hadn't considered that possibility and found it intriguing. And according to sources, within hours of this conversation, word had spread among NFL executives at the Combine that Cleveland might be planning something dramatic involving Kirk Cousins. The Kirk Cousins angle makes more sense than it might initially appear, according to sources who've analyzed Cleveland's situation and Atlanta's situation and who've looked at how a potential trade could work. According to sources, the Atlanta Falcons are in a difficult position where they have Kirk Cousins under contract for 2 more years at significant cap numbers. But they also badly need a young franchise quarterback to build their future around. According to sources, Atlanta would love to move up in the draft to ensure they get their quarterback of choice, whether that's Shedeur Sanders or Fernando Mendoza. But they're picking 8th overall, and there's a real risk that both quarterbacks are gone before their pick, according to sources who've been briefed on preliminary discussions between Cleveland and Atlanta. The framework of a potential trade would involve the Browns sending their 3rd overall pick to the Falcons in exchange for Kirk Cousins, Atlanta's 2nd-round pick in 2026, and Atlanta's 1st-round pick in 2027, According to sources, that package would give Cleveland an immediate starting quarterback who's still playing at a high level, would give them additional draft capital to build the roster, and would allow them to completely avoid the Shedder-Sanders drama and the Fernando Mendoza uncertainty from Atlanta's perspective. According to sources, getting the third overall pick would guarantee them access to either Shedder or Mendoza, depending on who the first two teams take, would allow them to move on from Kirk Cousins while getting fair value for him, and would set them up with a young quarterback on a rookie contract that allows them to build a championship roster around him. According to sources, the Falcons are very interested in this type of trade scenario if Cleveland is genuinely willing to discuss it. The logic behind Cleveland potentially pursuing Kirk Cousins instead of a rookie quarterback is compelling according to sources who understand Andrew Berry's thinking in the Browns' organizational situation. According to sources, Berry has become increasingly concerned over the past few weeks that Cleveland is about to make a catastrophic mistake by either drafting Shedder Sanders with all his baggage and complications, or drafting Fernando Mendoza, who's unproven and risky despite his strong workouts. According to sources, Berry has been studying the situations of teams that have succeeded with veteran quarterbacks versus teams that have tried to build around rookies. And the data shows that teams with established rosters like Cleveland's often do better with veterans than with developmental prospects. Kirk Cousins, according to sources who've analyzed his performance and his contract situation, represents exactly the kind of quarterback that could maximize Cleveland's current roster. According to sources, Cousins is still playing at a Pro Bowl level. He's extremely accurate and consistent. He's a proven leader who handles pressure well. And he's at a stage in his career where he prioritizes winning over individual accolades. According to sources, if Cleveland acquired Cousins and surrounded him with the weapons and defense they already have, they could legitimately compete for playoff spots immediately rather than going through another multi-year rebuild around a rookie quarterback. The financial implications of acquiring Kirk Cousins would be significant but manageable for Cleveland, according to sources familiar with NFL salary cap mechanics. According to sources, Cousins has 2 years remaining on his contract with cap hits of approximately $27.5 million in 2026 and $30 million in 2027. Those numbers are substantial, but not prohibitive for a team like Cleveland that would save money by not having to pay Deion Sanders his advisory compensation and by not having to deal with the other contractual complications that came with the Shedder arrangement. According to sources, the Browns could absorb Cousins' contract, use their remaining cap space and the additional draft picks from trading down to build the offensive line and defense, and be in much better shape overall than if they drafted a rookie at 3 and spent years developing him. The reaction from Todd Monken to the possibility of coaching Kirk Cousins instead of a rookie quarterback would likely be very positive, according to sources who understand Monken's offensive philosophy. According to sources, Monken's system is built around timing routes, quick decisions, and accurate ball placement, all of which are Kirk Cousins' strengths. According to sources, Monken has told people in the Browns organization that he could install his full playbook immediately with a veteran like Cousins, whereas with a rookie he'd have to simplify things initially and gradually expand the offense over time. According to sources, from a pure coaching perspective, Monken would much rather have Cousins than either Shedder or Mendoza. The obstacle to this Kirk Cousins trade scenario actually happening is primarily Jimmy Haslam, according to sources who understand Cleveland's ownership dynamics. According to sources, Haslam has been fixated on the idea of Cleveland having a young star quarterback who can be the face of the franchise for a decade. And Kirk Cousins doesn't fit that vision, even though he might be better for winning games in the short term. According to sources, Berry would need to convince Haslam that pivoting to Cousins is the right move, both competitively and organizationally. which won't be easy given how much public commitment Cleveland has made to the Cheddar plan. But, according to sources, the chaos created by Jimmy Haslam's alleged combine comments about Mendoza and by Deion Sanders, threats might actually work in Barry's favor when it comes to convincing Haslam to pivot to the Cousins plan. According to sources, Barry can now make the argument to Haslam that the Cheddar situation has become too toxic and too risky, that the Mendoza option is unproven and uncertain, and that acquiring Kirk Cousins represents a clean reset that avoids all the drama while giving Cleveland the best chance to actually win games in 2026. The timeline for Cleveland making a decision about whether to pursue the Kirk Cousins trade is tight, according to sources familiar with how pre-draft trades work. According to sources, if the Browns are going to trade with Atlanta for Cousins, they need to finalize it soon enough that Atlanta can then use the third overall, pick themselves, or trade it to another team, which means the deal would need to be completed in the next 3-4 weeks rather than waiting until draft day. According to sources, Barry and the Falcons' GM Terry Fontenot have tentatively agreed to continue conversations about the framework of a potential deal, with both sides doing additional due diligence before committing. The Deion Sanders factor in all of this is significant because, according to sources, if Cleveland pivots to Kirk Cousins, it would represent a complete abandonment of everything Cleveland promised Deion when they recruited him and Cheddar. According to sources, Barry would need to have extremely difficult conversations with Deion about terminating the advisory arrangement, paying out whatever contractual obligations remain, and managing the public relations fallout. But, according to sources, given that Deion has already threatened lawsuits and has already said publicly that Cheddar won't play for Cleveland, Barry might calculate that the relationship is already destroyed and that there's nothing to lose by just making the clean break now. The reaction from other NFL teams to the possibility of Cleveland trading for Kirk Cousins would likely be surprise followed by respect, according to sources who've discussed this scenario with executives around the league. According to sources, many teams would view this as Cleveland finally making a smart, mature decision to prioritize winning over headlines and to build sustainably rather than chasing the next shiny toy. But, according to sources, there would also be concerns among some teams that if Cleveland gets Kirk Cousins and builds properly around him, they could become genuinely dangerous in the AFC rather than remaining the dysfunctional mess they've been as of now. Friday afternoon, February 28th, 2026. The hint that Andrew Berry dropped at the Combine about Cleveland's quarterback decision potentially not being in this draft at all has created enormous speculation about a Kirk Cousins trade.